Go.
Hello, this is part 3 of our series, Human Trafficking, Elder Guardianship Survivor Stories. And with us today, we have our survivor or former ward of Seminole County, Florida, Jan Garwood. And interviewing her, we have Beverly Newman, my co-partner here. And she's an elder advocate with myself, Elena Stainbrook, and I'm an elder advocate. And I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and Beverly is also in Florida. So Jan and Beverly are both in Florida, but this happens everywhere. There's so many cases in Ohio, on all through the country. But today is, again, Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and this is our part 3. There's also part 2 and part 1, which are great to watch. And this is part 3, how hard it is to transition from incarceration and being in guardianship to in the isolation you experience to liberation. So for the first question we have is, where did you go upon your liberation, Jan?
I was very lucky that I had a friend who had a spare room that she would allow me to come live with her. And she was the one who picked me up and brought me to her house, where she has a husband and a son that she takes care of also here. So I was very lucky that I found adopted family. There was no one else that I had on the outside anymore, since they would never let me talk to anybody.
That is a really important theme that we want to emphasize. Almost no one ever survives guardianship on the other side alive. And you are a survivor. You are alive, thank God. You're healthy, thank God. But where do you go when your home is gone? Your possessions are gone. Your friends have not been in contact with you for years. Some of them may have passed away, moved away, etc. And they couldn't be in contact with you because you're held in isolation. So you literally are transitioning from almost no social contacts whatsoever to trying to rebuild your life without the friends you used to have, without the neighborhood, the religious houses of worship. You're starting from scratch. And that's what we want to explore today with you, Jan. The missing pieces of your life. Still, you have been liberated now since late August, so about 2 months. And what is that transition period like? And what is still missing out of your life that you don't know what happened, or you don't have any traces of your former life?
I think the worst for me was getting my driver's license and being able to take myself where I need to go, whether it's a doctor's appointment or the grocery store, or be able to do anything without bothering my friend too much, because she has other people that she helps and takes care of, and her own family she needs to take care of. And the last couple of days, I've been looking for a car, thank God. I haven't been able to buy one yet, but when I do, the other part of what I'd like to do is the person who initialized my trust to begin with. I'd like to go make sure she's okay. The woman is 103 years old. And I am very concerned.
Amen.
One of the major concerns I have is it was a family member who got me a guardian. And I've asked several times, but I am still afraid because they won't let me talk to her. When I call, her nurse tells me she's sleeping. She can't talk to me. And I sent her a certified return receipt letter with a copy of my competency letter and the judge's release of me so she would know. I don't know if she really got it herself or not, but She lives in another city that's a good 3 hours away. And I need transportation to drive down there and be able to see her, even renting a car because it's been the holiday weekend. There's no car rentals, no money to be able to do it with. I got one Social Security check that was in a bank, and that's what I've been living on. I try to pay for food here, so I have my own and give her money for supporting me, but she doesn't want to take rent money from me, and she's going to have to sooner or later, but
What
she
so?
fights
Let me
taking
just
what
let me just reconstruct here. Your life is dramatically, drastically different now, even in liberation, than it was before. You lost your home. They sold it for way under market value to the family of the director of the nursing home where you were forced to live. They took your car. You no longer have a car. They take all your documents. I mean, what I'm finding in other cases is that the Medicare cards are gone. The Social Security cards are gone.
Driver's
A lot of the,
identifications,
I'm sorry?
driver's license and identification.
Right.
It was a night for Jan to get her license, right, Jan? Because you had
Yes.
nothing to start with.
If I didn't get a driver's license, I wouldn't have been able to open a checking account. And from what I've heard, I'm still fighting. I have the governor, Ron DeSantis, has been trying to help me. I
Amen.
Thank God.
$15,000 of back Social Security checks that they will not give me, even though they have all the paperwork to prove that's my money. And that would make such a difference if I could get a hold of that, because the trust won't release me anything. And I'm not sure that they will approve the purchase of a car again. I'm almost afraid to do it, but I did notify them that I'm looking. And that's where I'm going to have to go for it. The other thing that I lost, which hurts me a lot too, is a lot of people have a pet or an animal that's now their family when they're elderly. And they took my dog away from me. And that was one of the first things that I fought in the assisted living. I thought I saw a bowl of food down on the ground floor, and I asked if I could have my dog there. And they wouldn't let me. I had a 12-year-old Boston Terrier. And I have no idea what happened to her or where she went.
This is an important theme that people don't think about, but I know of many cases where the dogs just disappear, and even where other measures are taken against the animals. It could be
Yep.
a cat
Like
as
poisoned.
well. So
Mhm.
you really lost essentially almost everything that you had in your former life, and now you're trying to rebuild from scratch to reach where you already had been for years and years. How can you heal? How do you see yourself healing and giving inspiration to other people? And I have to just take a moment here to acknowledge the fact that Jan has weathered this storm more like a tsunami better than virtually anyone I've ever seen.
Thank you.
She is able to express her feelings in very meaningful, coherent ways, and has a grasp of what happened to her without breaking
Bitterness.
down.
Yeah, without bitterness and being super bitter and resentful and angry. She's very, Jan, you are one of my role models. I mean, you're one of the most resilient people I've ever encountered. I think I can really honestly say I wouldn't handle it as well as you did. And I don't know very many people who would handle it as well as you have.
And
Truly.
that's a perfect term, Elena, resilient. Jan has a resiliency that most people will never witness. So I'm very, very thankful that you're doing this Elder Guardianship Survivor series with us, because people need to see real life miracles and resiliency. So again, how do you heal, and how do you recommend or advise for other people to be able to heal if they reach your milestone, God willing, of being liberated from guardianship?
One day at a time. And with God's help, that's the only way I've made it through this. I'm very lucky that I was found by you girls and that you were able to help me. So there are organizations out there, if people do happen to get out or are close to getting out, try to find some place like this that are against guardianship. It is something now that you can look it up on Facebook, which is where I put my original cry out. I put the people's names and advertise, do not let this guardian anywhere near you. Somebody help get me out of here. And
Good for you.
So I sent it all over the United States and opened it up and said, help me. And they did.
Now, you were only 68 years old when you went into guardianship, and you are at least somewhat technological savvy, so you knew how to use a smartphone.
Yes.
And you were very smart in using your smartphone, which you hid and even slept with it under your pillow. So Jan was always working ahead of the game to try to figure out how she was going to get out, which still took years. And as I said in part 2, hundreds of communications from the top of the government on down to media, etc., in order to get you out. Now, what is still missing in your life, and what is your guardianship legacy that you're leaving for others?
Well, a lot of things that you might ask me, when did this happen and when did that happen? I had all these things written down in paperwork, and I had my business. I had a timeshare resale website. So I was concerned that all these families that I swore I'd never let their name go out, God knows what the guardian did with them. And it really does upset me that when I make a promise to someone, I like to stand behind it. So it's just something that bothers me. But all my jewelry that belonged in my family, I walk around with stuff that turns my fingers green. And I have such beautiful, or had such beautiful pieces, but they all had memories. So that belonged to my great grandmother, that type of thing. And I know it's cheap of me to be that way, but those are the things that I miss the most. I miss my house.
Those are,
love my house.
those are heirlooms, and those are sentimental. They're very important.
Yeah. Heirlooms and mementos, you know,
And
nostalgic mementos that you may never see again.
Yeah, I don't want to think that way. I'm still thinking I'm going to find out if she ever kept it in that place where they storage units.
And they may actually still have the majority of your personal possessions, and we would certainly pray for that.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, is having been given, when someone died where I was living in the assisted living, they'd bring me their old clothes if it fit. And that's all I have hanging. I live at Goodwill because I have no money to be able to buy clothes. I need shoes. And it's very difficult to have to adjust to living with people's old clothes. But I do. And you have to do what you got to do. That's the only way to make it to tomorrow. You do it.
Amen. And that's the resiliency that you are willing to do what you need to do and not go through life dwelling on everything that you have missed out on. But, and also recognizing that there are parts of your life that are missing. I know that you were denied at the Palms of Longwood in your cell, essentially, with bars on the windows, to even have writing paper. I used to call you up and ask you to write something down for me, and you'd have to write it on a paper napkin.
I still do. I've got all my napkins.
Oh.
Well, aren't they important? But still, you would think, how do you deny?
But you should keep those like a scrapbook or
Yes.
That's what I said. I've still got all my napkins. I'm not going to forget any things that happened because I wrote them down and I've got them. Even if it's on a napkin or a paper towel, I've got them.
That's good. And that actually leads us to another question is, are you writing a diary or a record of about your incarceration and the guardianship and your freedom?
I wish I could. I'm not much of a writer. I'm a good talker, but I'm not much of a writer. I really should. And hopefully one of you girls will take over and write my biography.
Well, even if you do notes, that's very helpful.
It is.
As a writer, as an author, if I have notes, and especially contemporary notes, that's extremely helpful. So you might think about that. And I want to ask you, what's your most important quote or biblical quote that you can give to our audience as far as helping to uplift yourself and other people?
Well, I know it's common and everybody's heard it, but I really believe that in God we trust. And as long as
we trust
God and you trust that he's going to send you where you need to be, when you need to be there, say the things that'll mean something to someone else. And if I can save anybody from going into guardianship or helping people understand not to do it to your family, even though you think you're doing the best thing for them, you're not. Guardianship has got to be obliviated, so it's no longer available to anyone. The courts need to hear no more guardianship for anyone.
Yeah, it's too profitable. And as we've seen from your answers, it's so connected and intertwined, and people benefit from your suffering and your losses, and people that you would leave it to, like your sons or somebody else, don't get it then because it's taken away. And who you want it to go to and what you want done, just what you want done. You don't have that right. So
yes, and
it's really important.
Away. It's not just I lost my dog, I lost my sons. I had 3 sons and one died. And I believe that was a big part of it, is I went into such a depression over it that my families probably figured they were taking care of me by doing that. But I have 2 other sons and one is in Oregon, and I wasn't able to go to his wedding because I wasn't released in time to get a plane ticket or have the money to buy a plane ticket.
It's terrible.
And go. So I missed my son's wedding by 24 hours.
Oh no. Oh,
and
no.
My other son is here, but he's having financial problems also because can't find work. And
so when you're transitioning,
he tries to help me, but he still has no way. And I think he probably can't even afford to take me for a hamburger, and that would embarrass him. So I think that could be another reason why I don't see him as much as I'd like to.
In other words, you're saying that there are family occasions, events, holidays, birthdays, etc., that are gone, that have been denied to you in guardianship. And again, We're not talking about good, solid, loving, familial guardianships where a member of your family or a person that you're truly close to wants to care for you or someone else when that person is not able to care
Yes.
for himself or herself. We're talking about professional guardianships, which rely on taking, as Elena said, benefits from you, but it's really profiteering from you. Profiteering, it is not uncommon at all in an average guardianship for an attorney to make hundreds of thousands or $100,000 off of a particular guardianship. It is not uncommon for the ward, the person who's put into guardianship, to lose everything. And when I say everything, I mean your pets, your homes, your vehicles, your entire lifestyle, your communities, your houses of worship, your entire records, all your cards that you have in your wallet. Where did those all go? And I want to ask you as a closing message to our audience, what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful I got out. That's the most important thing. And without all of your help, I wouldn't have gotten out. I'm thankful that I'm able to hopefully help other people, that I could do things like this that we are doing, and I can spread the word and let people know. If I can only protect everybody's parents, they wonder, how did they get taken away from me? How could this have happened?
And especially in today's age where, you know, people believe and trust social workers and everything. And I'd even like to add, if you have a family member, even sometimes they don't have the best intentions. I don't think any one person should have complete control and access over somebody else, because there's just too many lines that can be blurred and too many unhonorable, you know, treatments and actions and things like that can happen. I think it's just the way it is. It's just not right at all.
Except that in some situations, there's nobody else who's going to step up to the plate from the family.
No.
And I'm talking about a familial guardianship. I am not talking about a professional guardianship. In a professional guardianship, that professional guardian has essentially total control over another person that he or she may not have any relationship with it at all. No bonding, no, this guardian is not a stakeholder in what happens to you other than in terms of a situation when the assets you have can benefit the guardian or the attorneys, etc.
Yes, amen.
Unfortunately, that's too often the case. That is not always the case, but it certainly was the case with Jan, who never, ever belonged in guardianship.
Never.
She was not incompetent. She was not incapacitated. As I knew the first time I spoke with her on this secret phone and the secret phone call, this was not an incapacitated person. And we want to thank you again, Jan, for setting the example, the role model that all of our wards and families need to understand is possible. There is hope. And please, as Jan says, in God we trust, and look to people who really will care for you. Jan had a few nurses, a doctor, etc., who had her best interests at heart. And
Yes,
thank
that
you
was
so
very
much,
helpful.
Jan.
Thank you,
No.
Jan.
Thank you.